report that I had heard. So we got more people coming in. Pete Coladas is here. Hey, Pete. Yeah, that's you. Come on in. So that's what I know. Yes, ma'am.
I was in Belfry today, and as I was leaving Belfry, on this end of Belfry at Bob's Market, there was a sign on the door of free water. I think it would be drinking water.
Yeah.
Everybody's on each side.
Yeah. Belfry had some issues when I contacted them on Monday morning. They still did not have many of the basic necessities they needed, and I connected them with the sheriff and relayed some information to the state officials for them, and they began to get materials flowing. Yeah, Charles.
I lived through Detroit when we lost power for 3 days back in 2003. We lost power once in 1995 for 7 days and various other times. And at the state level, if I get in, I want to propose that we do something to help gas stations, convenience stores, grocery stores get enough generator power so they can keep their pumps going, they can keep their coolers going. And to me, it's almost like a national security. Because if they knock out our power lines, if you can't run a generator, you don't have gas. And that's just something I feel that as a nation, we're very underprepared. Because we were up in Detroit when the power went out, that was it. You couldn't get gas, you couldn't go anywhere. Everything was down, and it's just, I don't understand why we're not more prepared at the little level than we are. I mean, you would think insurance premiums of all food get thrown out.
Sure. Well, you know, many of you know my background. You know where I started from. I was born and raised on a two-wheel wagon rut mule farm, and we didn't have indoor plumbing until I was about 13 years old, and we farmed with mules. You know, we didn't have air conditioning either, and it was, I mean, we just didn't, and we heated with an old wood-burning, coal-burning, pot-bellied stove. So, you know, I do understand what Charles is saying. You know, we don't know. America doesn't deal with that anymore. We've become so convenient oriented to have everything at our fingertips that you know, some of the folks in this room, I can tell by the color of your hair, you know how to survive those kinds of situations, but many folks might not know how to do that. I think one of the lessons learned, Charles, from this experience is that, and I've offered to help, is to collect some lessons learned about not only our EMA procedures, but establishing basic communications. In this case, it was particularly difficult all across the state because the cell phone towers were knocked out. Not that the towers were down, but the cell phone service was not working. Landline telephones were not working. The internet was not working. And so there was no communication. In Belfry, for example, where they were having an issue with the availability of oxygen, you had patients that needed oxygen. They couldn't contact the healthcare providers. The healthcare providers couldn't contact them, and their equipment was not functioning because they had no power, so they couldn't get oxygen to them anyway. And so we've got to be a little bit more aggressive in terms, I believe, of practicing these kinds of things and making sure that we have communications capabilities. You know, is it beyond the scope of reason to think that each county's emergency management agency should have a satellite phone that they can be contacted by the state agency? Yes, sir.
Well, one of the things we've done with cell phones has gotten away from having a ham radio as the backup that it is, and that's something we need to get back to using and make sure that's being underpinned.
Sure.
The other thing is, I'm running for commissioner. I'm not a commissioner, but at the meeting the other day, apparently there was a generator that it took them a couple of days to get it out of Columbus. I'm not complaining. I'm just for after action. It took them a couple of days to get out of Columbus, and when they got down here, whatever it was coming down for, the power had been restored. But they had, so if that's one, then this one, then that one, and they were told by Columbus they were mission specific, so they had to send Columbus. That needs to be fixed.
Yeah. As equipment becomes available to cascade down, it ought to do that. I certainly agree with that.
I was the EMA director for 12 years for Athens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know that in Washington County, the Red Cross was out in full force and very, very aggressive in terms of addressing problems. I was in another county earlier today that, if I understood them correctly, they lost their Red Cross office through some consolidations, and they don't have a county Red Cross focal point anymore. They're shared with somebody else. Does Athens County have its own Red Cross focal point?
Yes.
Okay.
Athens.
Yeah.
But I think there are 3 counties together.
Right.
Meggs and
Hockey.
Hockey and Athens.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
their headquarters.
Okay. Good. Good. Yes, ma'am.
When I was growing up, we had emergency broadcasting. Is that not possible when all the power is gone? I think there was something set up that we could have, because I tried to find information because I was well cut off. Nothing.
Well, I don't know that, you're right. I remember that as a kid too. You'd get that high-pitched beat. This is a transmission of the emergency broadcast network, standby for a test, and it would be over AM radios and FM radios and even your TVs. That's a good question. I know that I think it's WNOA in down around Marietta. I know that they were putting out up-to-date information pretty regularly, but I don't know that it was an official part of their communication or
It
not.
seemed to be a little more regional and focused in that area. I mean, like, people here in Coolville needed to have an air-conditioned place to go to. I don't know how they would have found it.
Well, one of my observations is, and I don't know why, that's something for us to dig into with the lessons learned. I don't know why, but some places did not seem to understand or maybe weren't comfortable reaching out to their county EMA and telling them about what their needs were. I talked to some, and I'm not going to name who they are, but I talked to some village and town officials that, they said, well, we're out here on our own, nobody's helping us. I said, well, have you called the EMA and the Emergency Operations Center to tell them what your needs are? Well, no. I said, well, here's their number, call them. Let them know what you need, because if you don't call them, the Emergency Management Office, the EOCs, they're not going to be able to sit there. If they spend all of their time going down a roster calling each and every community asking them what they need, they won't ever respond to the phone calls that are coming in. Oh, that was a generator. So we need to make sure that communities know how to get in touch with their emergency operations centers too. Mayors and chief of polices and fire chiefs and those kinds of folks need to make sure that they've got all the contact information that they need.
There's a lot of radio stations that were off the air.
Yeah, they were. There were. WNOA was the only one transmitting on Saturday morning. We were in session in Washington on Friday. We actually traveled back through that storm. We pulled over in West Virginia and watched the stuff passing our windshield. It was some big stuff. Yeah. Yes, sir.